I just introduced Green New Deal 2 weeks ago, and it's creating all of this conversation. Why? Because no one else has even tried. So people are like, oh, it's unrealistic. Oh, it's vague. Oh, it doesn't address this little minute thing. And I'm like, you try. You do it.
Right.
Because you're not. Because you're not. So until you do it, I'm the boss.
That's
How about
right.
that?
All right, well, anyone could propose something. Of course, you have to put pen to paper and come up with ways that you're going to pay for it. And that's where some in the Democratic Party have differed with Congresswoman Cortez, because they're saying that the numbers don't add up. They're for some of the same goals here, but some of the way this is outlined in a plan that has really no sort of a cost breakdown, that isn't exactly brave. At least that's the battle royale within the Democratic Party among some who just say that they don't want to be typecast as signing on to something that so far doesn't have a clear price tag or direction on it. Fox News contributor Katherine Timpf is here, attorney Danielle McLaughlin, and the National Review contributing editor Deroy Murdock. Deroy, no one denies the Congresswoman's passion and everything else, but does she speak, from what you're hearing, to the party and for the party?
I think it's amazing how this freshman congresswoman who's been there for about 2 months or so, I've described her as a one-woman Democrat National Committee. I mean, she's come up with ideas that a year ago, 6 months ago would have been crazy, like abolish ICE. That's now pretty much a central plank of the Democrat Party. She and Bernie Sanders have been pushing Medicare for all. Again, that looked radical. Now lots of Democrats are for that. And now Green New Deal. I mean, whether you like it or not, she got Ed Markey, a pretty senior senator, to back it. A lot of other Democrats, including presidential candidates, have.
I made a point of getting my hands on the whole thing, and there isn't a lot of there. There are a lot of meritorious goals, and I know, Danielle, one of the things that have been raised is, well, John F. Kennedy didn't have a plan when he said land a man on the moon before the decade was out, but it was a little bit different. There was a strategy and a step-by-step goal to that. I'm wondering, do Democrats risk, we just had Don Peebles here, is concerned this leftward lurch is going to hurt the party?
Well, climate change is a concern for the majority of Democratic voters, and actually Medicare for all, depending on how you characterize it, because is it single payer, is it universal, is there Republican? Like, those things are also very popular with Democratic voters.
But it's doing away with commercial jets part of that strategy?
That's a great question. And I think the Green New Deal is an aspirational document. The devil is in the details. How will this be paid for? A carbon tax, cap and trade. Like, how will this be done? And I think people who are saying this is, the Democratic Party going very far to the left, it's a little unfair. This is I think, a set of ideas, in fairness.
Well, but she's selling it as not just a state of ideas. She's setting as a blueprint in which to leap. And then, of course, there was the problem with the breakdown of this, answering basic questions about it, that was also wrong. So, look, that can happen. She's a freshman congresswoman. To Deroy's point, she's a rock star. I get that. But if you're going to be a rock star, you're going to be a boss, it's contingent upon you to have your facts in order.
Right, yeah. She says she's the boss, which for me, I think that's an incredibly arrogant statement to make if the reason you think you're the boss is because you came up with a plan that didn't work. It's not going to be possible to eliminate carbon emissions in 10 years.
To his point, I mean, she is leading this charge.
She is, but this doesn't work. It's like me saying, okay, we're going to travel around on unicorns instead of jets because there's no emissions from unicorns. Am I the boss now? Did I just become the boss? My plan works just as much as her plan's going to work. I don't understand why you're out there bragging. You didn't find a solution. Sure, you have some ideas, but they're ideas that don't work. Ideas don't matter if they're not viable.
And yet she's got presidential candidates, even though they're unicorn. I agree, they're unicorn crazy ideas.
Stuff.
And yet you've got Kamala Harris and Cory Booker and Elizabeth Warren, who.
But Kamala Harris has backed off a little bit.
Maybe a little bit, but I mean, you don't hear the Democrats saying, "Oh, that's a unicorn idea. You're crazy. Why don't you sit down and study hard?"
So they're a little concerned. That's where the passion of the party is right now.
Right, and I think one of the problems with what she said there was that she stands on the shoulders of many people on the left and on the right who have worked on climate change issues for 2 or 3 decades. The United Nations had a Green New Deal in 2009, and there were trillions of dollars put into it. It had limited success, but this isn't some brand new idea. Certainly the sort of kitchen
sink approach. Say what you will about whether President Trump should have abandoned the Paris Treaty, the Paris Accord on climate change. You could argue there was a method and a madness and a carbon tax and a responsibility for the richer nations versus the poor nations. There was a game plan. Now, you could accept or reject whether there was a logic to it, but it was certainly a lot more logical and well planned out than some of the things I see at it.
Well, and the idea that this can be done in 10 years is clearly not possible. And I think that they got over their skis on that.
So, but she's taking it out for something that others have done across the globe. And again, whether you buy that climate change plan or not, that was a lot more detailed and a lot more kind of patterned than anything here.
And that is necessary. It's necessary to actually have a plan if you want to solve the problem. I do believe that climate change is an issue, but proposing things that are pie in the sky and completely impossible, that helps just about as much as doing nothing.
I'm also amazed how broad this is. It's not just something on global warming. This is the very end of her list of kind of principles that she put out a couple weeks ago. Quote, provide high-quality health care, housing, economic security, and clean air, clean water, healthy food, and nature to all, unquote. That
nature is free.
Everything. That covers
what she's
everything.
About
everything for everyone.
Okay, but she's talking about federal lands and state lands. So should we be having oil and gas leases and ruining these natural spaces, or should we be preserving them for future generations?
Well, do you buy the premise, and this JFK comparison comes up a lot, you know, set a broad, big goal that everyone going to look forward to, the different time, different environment, I get that. But that rally around that, and we'll get to the details later.
Well, we're on a conservative network, and we're talking about climate change. I think that is, she's getting a buzz. Young people care about this, Gen Z, millennials, younger voters who are going to be the biggest voting.
You know, I don't even look at it as conservative now. There's a conservative guy in the White House who doesn't flip over me, but I would say this, that I look at things just money. I know this sounds trite when I always say it. It's not red or blue for me, it's just green. Show me how that green supports whatever your agenda is. And I don't see it. Now, by the way, Republicans are hardly in a position to brag when they've built up these deficits that added to our debt. But I fault both parties on not addressing overall spending. Now, that is something that hurts both their credibility. A green initiative without spelling out how you're going to come up with the green to pay for it, just as much as Republicans are talking about being good fiscal stewards who've been anything but.
Right. I'm angry at both parties in terms of fiscal responsibility. I feel as someone who is fiscally conservative that I don't really have a place in either major party right now because neither one seems to care about spending. But something like this is just quite so clearly ridiculous that I don't understand why she keeps bringing it up. I think that she should spend her time, instead of bragging about how great she is, maybe trying to figure out something that's actually viable. That's her job. And she might think she's the boss, but she's actually a public servant. She's a representative. She works for the people.
But Deroy, like I said in the beginning, she speaks for the passion of the party, and that might be the part of the party that shows enthusiasm and runs to the polls for a Democrat.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think the beating heart of the Democrat Party beats inside the heart of AOC, whether people like that or not. Again, I think her ideas are largely insane, but people seem to be quite swept up by her insanity.
All right, I saw your socks, young man, so don't talk about that.
Not very sane socks.
Yeah, exactly. Guys, thank you all very, very much. We have a lot more coming up, including oil prices. They were falling today, and all because of one tweet from the President of the United States just before he took off for Vietnam. I'll explain after this.